Hi. I'm in the back of a trunk. My license number is...
They could just be like, what? What do you mean you're in the trunk? That'd be such an odd phone call to get. And I've never to this day gotten one of those types of calls.
YTG or TT?
Yeah.
Which one?
YTG.
I think it's impressive that he knows his license plate because the majority of people don't. We usually have them say the letter with a word so that we don't get caught up. A little shocking type of call.
They threw me in the back of the trunk.
Who?
It's, Deb, Jordan, and then another guy. I'm not sure.
Where are you at? Where were you when they put you in the trunk?
I don't know.
Where were you when they put you in the trunk?
Around 6th Avenue.
We're at on 6th Avenue.
I'm not real sure.
I need some kind of location so I can start officers in that area.
Well, it's got to be somewhere in the 6th Avenue area.
In the 6th Avenue area?
Yeah, it's a black Impala.
A black Impala?
Black Impala.
Initially, with him saying 6th Avenue, he sounds like an elderly man. And so I would probably have asked, like, do you remember any buildings that were near you or any businesses or any cross streets for something like that? Again, if he's on a cell phone and if we have the phone carrier, usually that comes up on 911 lines. We can contact the phone carrier and try to track his GPS that way, or if it comes up on our screen, the latitude and longitude. I do want to point out though, because he asked, can you GPS me? When we contact the phone carrier, they don't just give us the location right away. It's time consuming, unfortunately. So if we were to say, hey, this man's kidnapped in the trunk of his car, their generic policy is for us to like fill out paperwork saying like what's going on, what's the phone number, and why do we need this information, and then we have to fax it over to them, and then we have to call them back, and then we will get the location. So it doesn't just happen just because we call them all the time. You might get a dispatcher that might do that for you, but their policy is to get paperwork for that, to run all that information.
They're out here. I can't talk right now.
Sir? Who did this to you? Barb who?
No, I'm sorry. Deb Jordan.
Deb Jordan?
Yes.
Okay.
We're stopped right now. Can you...
Is there a lever? Listen. In most trunks, in your cars,
I know
there's a lever.
There is.
Okay, can you pull that lever?
But they're in the car.
Is the car stopped?
Yes.
I would pull that lever and take off running.
I know in later vehicles they did put that lever in there. I probably would have asked if he feels safe, can he pull that and jump out and run? And if he doesn't feel safe, why? Like, do they have any weapons? Is he already injured? Is he maybe tied up and that's why he can't get out and run? That was just a few things going through my head as she was telling him just to pull it and just take off.
I can't get away.
Why not?
They're right here. They're right here.
How long were you in the car?
I've been in here about 15, 20 minutes. Can you GPS me?
I did. I have officers started for the area.
Okay.
But I don't know. I can't say for sure that's where you're at.
It's a black Impala.
What?
A black Impala.
I got that. Is your name Ronald?
Yes.
Okay. Who's Deb Jordan to you? Who is she to you?
What?
Who is Deb to you?
Just a friend.
What?
Just a friend.
A friend?
No, not really a friend.
I can't hear you.
I I mean, obviously, it's always easier to say what I would have done than in the moment. I think she could have asked, if, like I said, if there was any weapons used, if they know why they put him in the trunk, or any description on the other guy that he didn't know. But then again, he also said he couldn't really talk too much, and that's why he's whispering. There have been instances where it's been something similar to my victim not being able to talk, and I'll tell them like, okay, just hit the button once for yes and hit it twice for no, and just ask yes or no questions, or just ask yes or no, and that's all that they respond with.
Sir? Sir? Sir?
Come on. Come on, boy.
I hear struggle. And a female talking now.
Come on. Come on, boy. Come on. I'm trying to travel off that. Will you stop that? Stop.
You can tell towards the end they're having some type of altercation where the suspects are now confronting this man, and the last thing on his mind is the phone. He doesn't want them to know that he's on the phone. So it's just trying to get the units there as quickly as possible. So if they have the capability, which we do at my agency, is if he's on 911, we can do something called refreshing, and we can refresh it and it updates the latitude and longitude. I mean, it only gives a certain meter range. Sometimes it's very accurate, sometimes it's very broad, but that's the only thing you can do at that point, and try to narrow down where he might be. And again, get a hold of the cell phone company. It's just kind of hard where if they're calling, like say like a domestic, that's one of our like number one calls, but the wife doesn't want the husband to know that they're calling. So you can, depending on their situation, I've had to tell them like, okay, can you at least just answer yes or no? And they'll say yes. Like, okay, is he in the room? Yes. Okay, is this a boyfriend? And they'll say no. Like, okay, is this a husband? Yes. Okay. Is there any weapons? Yes. Okay. Is it a gun? No. Is it a knife? No. And then you just kind of keep thinking like what you can ask that's yes or no kind of thing, and just keep them on the line as long as you can, again, until the officers get there, because it's a priority in progress call.
I'm not going to tell anything.
Hello?
Come on, just let me go. I ain't going to tell nothing. I'm not. I don't even know your what to do. Come on.
Police officers were able to trace his phone to Prospect Park in Des Moines. When officers arrived, they found a car with a shattered window and Karras in a nearby wooded area. The 60-year-old was found unresponsive and bleeding from his head. According to police reports, he had been beaten with a brick. Karras was immediately rushed to Mercy Medical Center. Deborah Oliver and co-conspirator, John Deering, were arrested and charged with first-degree kidnapping. The pair kidnapped Karras because they believed he had money on his person. Karras suffered severe brain damage. For a while, he had a hard time recognizing family members. Sadly, Ronald Karras died a year later from the complications of the brutal attack.
Obviously, that was a tough call to deal with and to handle. It's not a typical one that we would get. I think the dispatcher did pretty good trying to narrow down. I think she did reassure him that the units were on the way and checking the area and that kind of thing. So that was good. It's just trying to read your victim and read the situation and try to ask the best questions that you can and get out as much important information as possible. And obviously, it was really difficult for her to do that. Just, I think, given maybe his age and the shock of what was going on, and then him not wanting these suspects to hear that he was on the phone trying to get some type of help. So I think she did the best she could. I would have liked her to ask just if there were any weapons, and maybe if he was like tied up or if he was handicapped or unable to run. But overall, I mean, you got to do the best you can when you're in that moment. And I think she did the best that she could. And I'm glad that they at least found him and was able to bring his suspects to justice too.